Raw garlic, a single clove crushed on a cutting board, releasing that sharp, unmistakable smell. And inside your arteries, the moment it hits your bloodstream, something genuinely surprising begins. This is exactly what you came to find out. What raw garlic really does to the living walls of your blood vessels, backed by what the science actually shows, not folklore. And there is a lot to show. In the next few minutes, I am going to walk you through the specific compounds garlic makes, how they relax your artery walls, how they change the way your blood clots, and why crushing that clove matters more than almost anything else you do with it. Some of what is coming is well established in human trials. Some of it is early and still debated, and I will tell you honestly which is which. But there is one effect on your arteries, number one on this list, that researchers find the most striking of all, and it is the reason garlic has been studied for the heart for over 50 years. Stay with me because I will not get to it until the end. Let us start with the thing most people get completely wrong. Garlic sitting whole in a bowl is chemically almost asleep. The magic only wakes up when you damage it. Inside a raw clove, there is a compound called alliin, tucked away in one compartment, and an enzyme called alliinase, stored separately. When you crush, chop, or chew that clove, the walls break, the two meet, and within seconds they react to form allicin, the yellowish, pungent molecule responsible for that hot, biting taste. Allicin is the headline act. But here's the catch you need to remember for later. Heat destroys alliinase. If you mince garlic and throw it straight into a hot pan, you can shut the whole factory down before it ever produces anything. Hold that thought. So what does allicin actually do once it is inside you? This brings us to the second effect, and it is a big one. Allicin and its breakdown products act as a source of hydrogen sulfide gas inside your blood vessels. Now, hydrogen sulfide sounds alarming. It is the rotten egg smell, but in tiny, controlled amounts, your own body uses it as a signaling molecule. In the lining of your arteries, it tells the smooth muscle in the vessel wall to relax. When that muscle relaxes, the vessel widens. That widening is the beginning of nearly everything good garlic does for your circulation, which leads straight to the third effect, nitric oxide. The inner lining of every artery you own is a delicate single layer of cells called the endothelium, and one of its most important jobs is to release nitric oxide, a gas that signals the artery to open up and keeps the surface smooth and non-sticky. Several studies suggest garlic compounds help the endothelium produce more nitric oxide. More nitric oxide means more relaxed, more flexible arteries. And a flexible artery is a young artery, functionally speaking. But how does that translate into a number your doctor actually measures? Let me show you. Number 4, blood pressure. This is one of the best supported effects in the entire garlic story. Several meta-analyses pooling data from many controlled trials have found that garlic supplements can modestly lower blood pressure in people who already have hypertension. We are talking, on average, a reduction of roughly 8 to 10 points in the top number and around 5 to 8 in the bottom number in some of those analyses. That is not a drug-level effect, and it is not a replacement for medication, but it is a real, measurable drop driven by exactly those relaxed, widened vessels we just talked about. Now, here is where it gets interesting because blood pressure is only one way garlic touches your arteries. The fifth effect is about what flows through those vessels. Your blood contains tiny cell fragments called platelets, and their job is to clump together and form clots to stop bleeding. Useful when you cut yourself. Dangerous when a clot forms inside a narrowed artery and blocks it. Compounds in garlic, including allicin and a molecule called ajoine, have been shown in laboratory studies to make platelets less sticky, less likely to aggregate and pile up. Think of it as making your blood flow a little more smoothly past rough spots. This is also exactly why doctors sometimes ask you to stop large garlic supplements before surgery and why you should be cautious combining big doses with blood thinners. A real effect cuts both ways. Now, number 6, and this is a quiet one that does not get enough attention. Before a fatty plaque ever builds up in an artery wall, something has to go wrong first. LDL cholesterol, the so-called bad cholesterol, has to become oxidized. Oxidized LDL is the damaged, reactive form that your immune cells swallow up, turning into the foam cells that make up the core of arterial plaque. Garlic is rich in sulfur-containing antioxidants, and some studies suggest it can reduce the oxidation of LDL. If you slow that first spark of damage, you may slow the whole fire that follows. But does garlic touch cholesterol levels themselves? Let me get to that. Seventh, cholesterol. The evidence here is genuinely mixed, and I promise to be honest with you. Some trials show that regular garlic modestly lowers total and LDL cholesterol, on the order of a few percent, particularly in people who started with high levels. Other well-run trials show almost no change at all. So the fair summary is this: garlic is not a cholesterol drug, and anyone who tells you it will melt away your numbers is overselling it. Its strongest cardiovascular effects are on blood pressure, on vessel flexibility, and on how blood behaves, not primarily on the cholesterol number itself. That brings us to the eighth effect, one I find quietly fascinating: inflammation. Atherosclerosis, the disease of clogged arteries, is now understood to be an inflammatory process from beginning to end. It is not just grease building up in a pipe. It is your immune system reacting again and again to injury in the vessel wall. Garlic's sulfur compounds appear to dial down some of the inflammatory signaling molecules involved, including markers like C-reactive protein in certain studies. Less chronic inflammation in the vessel wall means less of the ongoing damage that drives plaque forward. It is subtle, it is slow, but over years it may matter enormously. Number 9 takes us to the enemy itself, the plaque. There is a specialized heart scan called a coronary artery calcium score, which measures the amount of hardened, calcified plaque in the arteries feeding your heart. A small number of studies using aged garlic extract have suggested it might slow the progression of that calcium buildup over time compared to a placebo. I want to be careful here because these are small studies, and this needs far more research before anyone can call it settled. But the direction is intriguing, and it is one of the few times we can actually watch what happens to plaque itself, rather than just the risk factors around it. The 10th effect is one you cannot see or feel, but it may be one of the most important: arterial stiffness. As we age, our arteries naturally get stiffer, less springy, less able to cushion each heartbeat. That stiffness is a strong predictor of future heart trouble. Some research measuring what is called pulse wave velocity, essentially how fast the pressure wave travels down a stiff pipe versus a springy one, has found that regular garlic intake is associated with more elastic, more youthful arterial behavior. Flexible arteries absorb the shock of every beat. Stiff ones pass it straight through to the delicate organs downstream, like your kidneys and your brain. Which brings me to number 11, a practical one, because none of this matters if you destroy the medicine before you eat it. Remember the enzyme alliinase that gets wiped out by heat? Here is the trick researchers noticed. If you crush or chop your raw garlic and then let it simply sit on the cutting board for about 10 minutes before cooking, the alliin and alliinase have time to finish reacting and form allicin. Once the allicin is made, it is far more stable and survives gentle cooking much better. So that 10-minute pause, a genuinely small thing, can preserve a large share of the beneficial compounds you would otherwise cook away. It costs you nothing but patience. And number 12, before the big one, aged garlic is a different animal. When garlic is aged slowly over months, the harsh allicin converts into gentler, water-soluble compounds, most notably one called s-allyl cysteine. It is far less pungent, easier on the stomach, and it is actually the form used in many of the more rigorous long-term artery studies, including some of that calcium score work. So raw and aged garlic are not rivals. They are two doorways into overlapping benefits, one sharp and immediate, the other slow and mellow. Now, the one I have been holding back. The single effect researchers find most striking is not any one number. It is that garlic seems to protect the endothelium itself, that fragile inner lining, and healthy endothelial function is the foundation the entire artery is built on. In studies measuring flow-mediated dilation, literally watching how well an artery opens when blood flow increases, garlic has repeatedly been linked to better function. That is the master switch. Restore the endothelium, and blood pressure, clotting, inflammation, and stiffness all tend to improve together because they all trace back to that living lining. That is why, out of everything on this list, this is the effect that has kept garlic under the microscope for over half a century. So a crushed clove is not a cure.